So, I mean, when did you become like a full-blown capitalist pig dog? When did that happen? When did you start seeing humans walking around as dollars and cents and everything is negotiable by price?
Hey, first of all, I resemble that remark.
That's why I'm saying it.
Second of all, that's erroneous on many, many counts.
Well, you might.
It's a gross mischaracterization of
David, why are you going in on Dane so early? It's just
right out of the gates even.
We took a trip, and it felt like we cracked the code finally. It felt like we finally had an inside track on how to do this particular thing, and then we realized that by spending a little extra money, you get a much better experience. And then we start to realize
keyword there is little.
Yeah, a
right?
little.
See how much better your life can be with just a little. That theme's going to come back, but I'll let David continue.
And then it's so, well, if you're willing to pay this price, then you get to get this whole lavish experience. And then it's like, well, then that extrapolates all the way to life. Like, if you have this much money, then you get to experience all these cool things. But if you don't have this much money, you're a peasant and might as well go wallow in the goddamn filth.
I hate you. You're stupid and ugly. Go die.
Yeah, get out of here. No, thank you.
So, but before I get into my vigorous defense of myself here, I just want to, bring up a little thing that you might be thinking, hey, these guys seem to be rolling in it. You're probably thinking, man, you guys go on a lot of trips. I'm hearing a lot about, this is the same trip, okay? WMD is not rolling in that much dough that we're on weekly trips, just like, you know what, let's just go live life and have fun, and maybe we'll get an experience out of it. We can talk about it.
We got to squeeze as much fun into as tiny of these trips as we get, because we don't get them very often.
So not only... is that not the case? But if you want to make that a reality where WMD is just traveling all the time and coming up with insightful lived experiences, you can definitely help out in that mission. Just go to WMDpodcast.com and go to the support our work tab, and
and we could actually
help
add
out
content. Just Revelations, WMD Revelations.
the book of Revelations according to WMD.
I've seen the hilltop.
So anyway, yes, just one trip, multiple lessons. So that's another thing. You're getting bang for your buck when you do support us. One trip, multiple lessons. And here, let you know that even though we're out living life, we're always working.
Right. We're always thinking about you, dear listener.
Exactly.
Now, before this thing gets too long, which we discussed pre-roll.
Now that okay. All right. So I'm not that bad of a guy. What I'm saying is, first of all, that theme I told you guys to keep in mind, where David's like, for a little bit more money, you do get a certain different type of treatment. It's easier for you to get in and out of the park. You get, I think fast passes, essentially. You get like faster lines to the destination. You get some nice stuff if you quote unquote
get a couple of frills.
If you let them Beyonce upgrade you.
You pay a couple extra bills, you get the extra frills. That's what they're doing right now.
Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. Okay, so with that being said, I was like, that's fine. Why wouldn't you want to encourage people to upsell? This is a classic marketing technique,
whether you're
doing it in email marketing or whether you're doing, billboard marketing from back in the 80s and 90s. Once you get the customer in, you want to upsell them because, yes, you are a going concern and you're trying to earn a profit. I know that's a bad word to some, but you're trying to earn a profit. So if you have a business model where it's like, hey, we let all these people into these parks and they pay money for it, and we're going to get the same amount of people no matter what, but without changing or adding any extra overhead, we can just create a slightly better package that gives them slightly better access to the amenities, and we can make some more money. It need not be this drastic Marxist classism, like we only want to cater to the rich and the poor riffraff.
I'm going to go put purple dreadlocks in my hair and wear only farm-to-table clothing.
Yeah. So, I say that we need not put any moral value judgment on it, that it's good or bad or evil or not. It is just smart business. And that's all I'm saying.
Okay. I appreciate the fact that you're evil and have no soul. and we'll just keep moving on with this podcast.
With that being said, businesses, don't stop doing what you're doing, okay? You have the sign off from me. David probably hates your guts. But, still feel free to reach out to advertise on the show because we need the money.
Got to crack a couple eggs to make an omelet, right?
Exactly.
All right.
So with that said, are we ready to jump in?
Here we go.
Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 61. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode, by the way. The first ever interview. If you haven't listened to it, this is your first one. Go back and listen to episode 60. We interviewed our grandmother. She was on fire. You'll love it as much as we love her.
Yeah.
And with that heartwarmingness. So, David and I have been thinking recently. Oh, I should probably say, where to find us.
Maybe.
WMDpodcast.com/61 is where you can find this episode. You can also find us on YouTube. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction, and you can get us on any podcast catcher on the market. Just search for Weapons of Meme Destruction. You'll find our whole catalog of now 61 episodes. Also link up with us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. With that being said, David.
Yes.
I forget which Batman was it. One of the and there's many themes and little like one-liners or little exchanges that are you remember from the movie. Which Batman was it that did the whole?
That was the Dark Knight.
If you live long enough, your heroes become villains, or you become a villain. If
that was Harvey Dent, man.
Okay.
They were sitting in the restaurant that Bruce owned. He sits down and he says, "Okay, you either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain."
Dent said that.
Dent said that,
right.
Which is a running theme throughout.
And was this before or after? Okay, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The Dark Knight, I know we're way out in front of this thing from this movie that came out in like 2007.
Catch the fever.
Okay, spoiler alert. If you haven't, pause it, skip forward about 30 seconds to a minute in this episode because I'm about to say something. So when Dent said this thing at the diner, was his face already blown off, or this was earlier in the movie? No,
this is way before. This is at the very beginning of the movie. He's basically predicting his own.
He was serving up a steaming bowl of what, David?
Foreshadowing. Right next to a huge steaming bowl of foreshadowing. And then I found out his mom's name was Martha, too.
Yes. So that concept stuck out to us recently because we were noticing it seems to be picking up in pace and severity of some former heroes becoming villains.
Would you say recently. A trend of falling stars, per se?
I would say that.
That would make a great fucking title, wouldn't it?
I think it would. So, you probably listen to this episode and you're like, oh yeah, I remember X celebrity did this or Y did that one. Some you care about more than others. But we had some recent encounters, and we're just going to use a few of them that we remember off the top of our heads as foils. We'll be talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger and his basic recent apologetics for the regime, mask up, vaccinate, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the late night, formerly known as comedy show hosts. Just not funny at all. Kimmel and Colbert, but they're kind of indicative of that entire late night comedy class and how much they're just not funny since the age of Trump and post-Trump. And then last but not least, I'm sorry. I just messed up the organization. Howard Stern is before.
In not that order.
Yes, in not that order, right. Howard Stern after Arnie, and then we'll end with Colbert and Kimmel. So with that being said, first of all, why are they heroes of sorts?
Why are they in this order is because of varying stages of egregiousness, right, of what they did. But yes,
exactly. That's why the order is important. And, that is also a steaming bowl of foreshadowing.
We'll get it in post. But why are they important? Because they're risk takers. Basically, what happened was, or why we have such a problem with what they're doing, is that I feel like if they're that old conundrum where, like, if you showed themselves now to their younger selves would be appalled at what they've become. Basically, they've become the antithesis of what made them who they are.
Yeah, but let's do this like a compliment shit sandwich.
Okay.
Why are they our heroes? Let's start there.
Because they inspired us. Arnie inspired
at one point or another for different reasons.
Exactly. Yeah. Because they basically entertained us, and they gave us very very poignant moments of growth within our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, we can sync life events up around some of the things they did. So like Arnold, now granted, we're not this old. We weren't actually alive when Pumping Iron was filmed. But at a young age, we saw Pumping Iron and we're like, oh, that dude's cool.
T2 is
super
my favorite
chill.
Movie. Yeah.
Super chill.
Smoking a J on the couch after he'd won. It says Arnold is numero uno on his shirt.
Super chill, but, highly driven to reach the pinnacles of perfection per his sport, which, took a lot of effort, if nothing else. And, those are laudable personal character traits. And then to become a famous movie star and yada. Kimmel and Colbert. So Kimmel, I'll just say my story very briefly.
You're
on
doing
the
it out
show,
of order again.
Damn it.
Would you quit doing that? Would you just write down the order in which you're doing it?
Stop doing and then I wrote an arrow. Sorry, Kimmel and Colbert are last.
Good God.
I hope you're enjoying the trip, ladies and gentlemen. It's a windy, curvy trip we're going on here. So next one, Howard Stern.
All right, Sheryl Crow.
Wasn't she married to Howard Stern at one time?
No. Never. Where are we going?
We got to get off. Now I'm the one doing it on the train. So Howard Stern. I didn't really listen to his stuff that much. I mean, we were pretty young, and our parents probably wouldn't have let us listen to Howard Stern anyway. But he was one of those like cultural zeitgeists. Like he was in the ether that everybody knew of, and then his movie Private Parts.
He would go, and he was known for going above and beyond what he was a rule breaker. Like they tell him not to do something, he'd walk right back out and do it.
Which, I mean, the parallels between that mentality and David and I's life, again, listen to episode 0 and 60 for the way we see the world, that sort of rebellious type character trait.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And then last, finally, Kimmel and Colbert. And I think because this one's the most drastic example, Kimmel and Colbert is why I keep popping out in my mind. I want to rush ahead to get to them. Yeah. Kimmel, pretty simple, used to be on The Man Show, him and Adam Carolla. And those two, as they stand here today versus what they were together on The Man Show, are two completely different people. Adam Carolla has more or less remained the same. He hasn't got any more right wing or, all of the scare words they use against, people that don't toe the line. He's the same Adam Carolla from The Man Show. And it drives the woke culture, the cancel culture. It drives them nuts. So they hate Adam Carolla. Kimmel, on the other hand, has completely swallowed the Kool-Aid.
Well, he's got more to lose.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, he's running a late night talk show. And if you want an authentic opinion from a late night talk show, I think you're looking for a nice little refreshing aquifer in the middle of the goddamn desert. I don't think you're going to find anything original or authentic after on broadcast television in general, but just especially in the late night broadcast. Yeah.
But so where does the hero aspect pop into our life is The Man Show was kind of that, young, I don't know, our immature humor.
Right, exactly.
Which you hear come out on this episode. So we like to think that we've retained a little bit of that. There's a little Adam Carolla in us.
Right. In all of us.
If nothing else. That was just a fun time. Ha, that's funny. That was.
And then Colbert.
Nice. And Colbert in a very Jon Stewart, and we've spoke positively about Jon Stewart, even though we might disagree with him on some stuff. Colbert was the same way. His sort of irreverent approach to what should be serious topics and often political.
And he was playing he was doing shtick. He had a character on the Colbert Report. He was a neocon pretty much, but he would go above and beyond.
Yeah.
almost to the point, and they didn't know that it was a bit that he was doing. He got invited to the RNC to give a speech, and then he started ripping on all these people. They're like, "Oh shit, we let the fox in the hen house."
I forgot that part of the story.
That's again. That was back when he's being a rebel, who's breaking the rules, and he didn't care what the hell he was doing.
And now that you bring that up, and I think I thought this at the time, but since I had forgotten that part, and maybe it's different for you, it was because of that situation where I really didn't know where Colbert stood. I knew because of the character, he obviously wasn't your conventional neocon Republican, establishment Republican. But I also didn't necessarily see, I guess maybe because he was so good at the character, any overt liberal characteristics other than to just say, well, what's a liberal? Oh, it's someone who opposes a neocon.
Right.
That's the way a lot of people
is a dumb person. It's basically how you'd think a neocon would view a liberal person.
A liberal would view a neocon.
Right, but he would go so over the top with his bit. But it was good. It was good. And my favorite segment of his show was Yahweh or No Way. To be honest with you. But okay, he had liberal tendencies, but again, there's plenty of libertarians that have liberal tendencies, and there's absolutely no problem with that. And I'm not saying he has to be a libertarian to be somebody that we would like or look up to, but it was not only the creative way he did it, but he did it in a kind of smart way. Very artistic.
In a very court gesture, he was poking fun at the king, and we could all laugh and be like, yeah, this is all kind of crazy. We need that Colbert now,
so now
more than anything.
Let's start taking the list.
Yes.
Let's start putting the poop in the shit sandwich.
So, with the theme, heroes live long enough to become villains, Arnold. What was his message? And we'll share a link on the show notes page at wmdpodcast.com/61 of the interview that he gave. And I forget who was interviewing him. But he basically...
it was just a tweet. I thought he just shot a video.
No, he was doing an interview. He was doing a Zoom interview with two other people, I think. It was probably like a local LA reporter or something like that. Or whatever. Anyway, so the two lines that stick out from what Arnold had to say in that interview was one, screw your freedoms. I know, I'm not as good as you. David's going to give you the full experience here in a second.
No, I'm not.
Hold on. And then...
everyone can do an Arnold.
And
even
then
Arnold
was you a schmuck.
Even Arnold does an Arnold. It's crazy.
If you're not in line with the regime's everything that has to say about mass vaccine, everything, you're a schmuck.
Right.
That's basically Arnold's message.
It's maybe I would hold out some hope that maybe he thinks that he was just playing to the room at that point. And if he was getting interviewed by the LA, whatever the hell they are, he knows he's talking to
California.
A liberal. Right. And I would hope it's kind of forgivable. I get it. But again, he came out at the beginning of this, and let's not forget the beginning of the pandemic, or it wasn't even the beginning. He had that video on his whatever profile he had that he was comparing what was happening to the Crystal Knock, about how eventually the neighbors turned against neighbors and stuff like that. So this has been a slow trickle throughout. So I don't know if this is just like a one-off for him or not.
Well, it's not only that, and the other bit of evidence I was going to say for why my read on it is the hero falling from grace is there's a video of him on the campaign trail when he was running in the recall election in the early 2000s, and he actually became governor. And he's walking through a crowd of people, and I don't know if the person who threw the egg was a Democrat. I just know he was running as a Republican. I didn't see what they yelled at him or whatever. But anyway, he's walking by a crowd of people, and somebody throws an egg and hits him on the back of the shoulder. And the reporters or whatever, they turn around, they immediately ask him, Arnold, what do you think about that? Somebody just threw an egg at you. And his line was something to the effect of, that's part of what I love about this country. This is why I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be an American coming from where I came from, because here, people have the freedom to disagree. She probably doesn't like to hear what I have to say. Maybe she'll like some of it if she listens, but she should be able to have her opinion. That was his response to literally getting hit in the body, to literally, by the definition of the law, that was a battery. And his response is, I love America's freedom of speech. And if that's the way, and again, you could say he was on the campaign trail, he was a politician, that was a measured response. Fine. I think
that's more the Arnold that we know.
That was an on-the-spot interview. He wasn't prepped by his team for that. He gave that on the spot. And that is some of that pumping iron type mentality from his younger days that we respected about him.
Now ask us, Do we think Arnold deserves to be canceled for this?
Absolutely.
No. Does this besmirch his entire mantle? No. We think that he just took a bad viewpoint on something that is very poignant in our society right now.
Even though, by the way, which is odd, we're saying he shouldn't be canceled for the things that he's talking about now, even though we object to his line of thought strenuously, versus the cancel culture will actually try to get people canceled for things they said 20 years ago, not now.
Right.
So if anybody has more of a justification to cancel, it would be, people in our situation who are offended by what they're saying now. But that's not the way we're going with it. I think, if anything, the joint feeling that David and I had when we saw this most recent interview was an element of sadness, a letdown. Like, right. Oh, no, they didn't get him too. Not my boy. Look what they've done to my boy.
Don't go out and burn your steroids and your whey protein, okay? Arnold is still Arnold, all right? He's just going through a rough point right now. Now, on to Stern.
Yes. Stern. Again, kind of that rebellious nature, again, back to apologizing to grandma. I'm going to drop the first F-bomb on this episode, so plug your kids' ears if they're in the car. What I think of the original Howard Stern was the original Rage Against the Machine, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Not the current Rage Against the Machine, which is like, fuck you, tell me to do what they tell you kind of thing.
Fuck you, do what they tell you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking about Howard with. He was an original Rage Against the Machine. Fuck you, won't do what you tell me.
But maybe that's just what happens.
He's just like,
maybe that's just what happens when you start to age. You start to get a different perspective. You start to see life differently than when you did when you were a kid. So maybe again, to track back to what we were just saying about Arnold, maybe this is forgivable. Well, it is forgivable. Anything's forgivable. But maybe this isn't such an atrocious tack to take. Is it short-sighted to say what he said? Yes. And what did he say exactly?
He said something to the effect of, his freedom is more important than yours. I mean, that wasn't a direct quote, but he's saying, screw your freedom not to get vaccinated. Right? I want my freedom to go out, go outside of my house, go to the movies, basically live my life. That was the gist of his, or the gist of his argument. And, I'm going to pull up some quotes from an article from him. He said, I want my freedom to live. I want to get out of the house. I want to go next door and play chess. Okay. I want to go take some pictures. That's what Stern had to say. So it's that mentality of like, oh, your freedom not to get vaccinated is ruining my freedom to move. And it pits freedom against freedom. And that's a divisive argument, but not completely irrational. So let's address that argument within the context of Howard Stern.
We understand it. And again, we've taken the approach this entire time that if you're afraid to do something, don't do it. But just because other people aren't afraid to do it doesn't mean that we need to outlaw it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that people have and his fear, albeit, in our eyes, somewhat less than, it is a rational fear, kind of COVID at his age, sure. But you know what? Other people have a fear of swimming in the ocean because they're afraid of getting bit by sharks. That doesn't mean that we need to go into the ocean and kill all the sharks so that nobody will ever get bitten by sharks ever again.
Yeah, life's about balance.
Right. Like it's risk reward kind of stuff. So
yeah, and my kind of take on that is, again, take it within the context of who Howard was himself. He came up from the bottom, essentially started from the bottom. Now he's on Sirius, making millions of dollars a year. How did he get from there to where he is? And he got it by that rebellious, I won't do what you tell me kind of character. His subject matters were graphic. I just listened to one the other day. I think it was like the early 90s. He had an interview with a guy. This guy's never been found. It was like a 10-minute long interview about a guy who claimed, or actually I saw the cut up. It was 10 minutes, could have been longer, who claimed that he was a serial killer. He was living in Louisiana. He had killed 20 women. They were all prostitutes. And like Howard goes through, and to Howard's investigative technique, he got some information out of the guy. Howard's like, you killed these girls with a hammer on the side of the head, so you must be a big guy. He would put in little things like that. But the authorities have never found this person. But the reason I tell you that little anecdotal story is that was a very controversial episode of early Howard Stern. And whether he saw it as, wow, this is a unique opportunity, I'm going to run with it, or whether he was just like, I know the powers that be are going to hate this, but I'm going to do it because it's good content, and who knows, maybe we might catch a serial killer. He was willing to take risks. And now, like David's analogy with the sharks, we've said this before on the podcast. If the pro-vax people want to say you can't leave your house unless you're vaccinated, they're telling you right off the gates that they think the panacea solution to this problem is to basically put unvaxxed people on house arrest, make them stay home, right? Well, at the very least, if that is a panacea solution that will fix the problem to all of society, then that same solution should affect your personal problem about your fear. If you're so afraid that an unvaxxed person might be around you and make you sick and die, even though the vaccine is intended to make the symptoms less severe for you and survive it better, if you're so afraid, stay home. Just like you want to force the unvaxxed to stay home, you can do the same thing. But Howard, in a rebellious form, I guess, and as far as that goes, says, no, I want to leave my house. That's my freedom. And he's completely disregarding the fact that the only thing keeping him in his house is fear.
Right. It's short-sighted, and I think if we had a conversation with Howard and allowed him to express his opinions a little further, he'd have a much more nuanced approach to it. So again, a forgivable mistake from somebody that used to push the envelope about as far as it can be pushed.
Yeah, still not going to cancel the guy.
Right.
But, the only thing keeping you on house arrest, my friend, and it's Howard, I'm saying this as somebody like not judgmental at all. We granted you the best version of your argument possible, which is it's freedom versus freedom and who decides which freedom is more important. Not mischaracterizing your argument at all. We grant that and say, just listen, man. If you feel that it's so drastic that you are essentially on house arrest because you don't have the freedom to go live your life, and that the only thing that's stopping you from walking out that front door is an unvaxxed person, you have to decide based on all the information you have, the fact that you have a super high chance of surviving it, that even with that chance already high, the vaccine itself severely lowers your potential symptoms, and all of the other information. Just decide which is less burdensome. Putting millions of Americans under house arrest so that you can go to the mall, or taking the individual step to say, I'm not going to let this fear dictate my life. I've taken all the precautions I think are necessary. I'm going to go live my life now.
And listen, as the 141st political podcast in Australia, if
we haven't checked in a couple of weeks, we might be moving up the list.
If that amount of fame can be forgiving, I hope that it can be passed down to like the lesser famous people, to the peons of the world.
By the way, now that I'm thinking about it, the fact that we're 141st in Australia, I don't think is a coincidence.
They must be locked inside forever. Weapons, sure, why not?
No, I mean Australia, I don't think it's even close. They're in first place by a mile in terms of the most draconian measures.
Right.
They have people downloading apps on their phone that if the government tells you, say, hey, send a picture of us in the next 15 minutes to make sure that you're in your home where you're supposed to be, they will show up at your house.
Do I have to put on makeup, or can I just...
We're not making that up.
How do you want it, government?
So...
Do you want me to look pretty for you? I'll look pretty.
So, David, is it completely out of the realm of possibility that we're actually the #1 political podcast in Australia, but the government's wanting to suppress our message?
You know what? I'd like to go
pushed us down.
That's going to help me sleep better at night. You want to get a...
We're now the #1. That's it. That's our reality.
We've declared it.
We're manifesting.
We've declared it. It's us. It's us in Australia. G'day, mate.
So, Aussies, we love you. Godspeed. Stay safe.
Put another shrimp on the barbie. Anyway.
Did you have to... Now,
of course.
we
now they're
like
those blokes are out in minds. And I just went British. My bad. All right, so on to Kimmel. And
so, yes. Kimmel and Colbert. Sitting in a tree. KOVCOVIDING.
19.
Was that a Freudian slip? Is there anything important about kill? I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, Kimmel and Colbert. So their theme and why they can be lumped together is not just because they are late night talk show hosts, but because their message was pretty much the same. And it is the most drastic. If you've been paying attention to why we went in this order, Arnold's message is a little bit more benign. don't be a schmuck and screw your freedoms. We need to keep people safe.
You can't help yourself. You're trying to do.
Are you trying
to do a bad one so that I do?
No, I think I'm catching you. I think I'm getting better
right now. Okay. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing the Arnold.
I promised it to them. Now they're going to be angry if they don't get it at some point.
I'm not doing it.
Okay. So Arnold's
get to the chopper.
Okay, I guess that's all you get. Arnold's message is a little more benign. Howard's takes it up another notch. By pitting freedom against freedom, Howard's kind of saying like, hey, listen, my freedom's a little bit more important than yours. So, if I want, people to forcibly put a needle in your arm, then I'm going to be okay with that. Kimmel and Colbert's message is significantly darker. Both of them did monologues in one of their recent episodes, which again we'll share on the page, where they had at least one, if not a couple or a series of jokes centered around the theme of, unvaccinated people are not going to get medical treatment, and that's a good thing. They were cheering, they were happy with that. They're like, it was almost sort of like not an over the top, but sort of like an underseated arrogance, and sort of like almost there was a punitive nature to it. It's like, it's not just, you guys aren't making the wrong decisions and we're shaming you. It was like, you're an other, you're an undesirable, you're beneath us. And if you die off, that we're happy with that. It was gross, to be frank. But again, we're just going to share their monologue because their monologue's 5-6 minutes long. We're not going to play them whole thing on the episode.
Spark note it for me. What did they do?
But think about that. So think about the memes. Think about pre-COVID times, right? Bernie Sanders kind of got the movement going, but on the, I guess, harder version of the left, whatever, they call themselves moderates, doesn't matter. They have this whole like healthcare is a human right? That's why we need Medicare for all. That's why we need single payers, because healthcare is a human right, shouldn't be dependent upon your income or job status. You should just get it to the best degree possible on the United States government's dime. That's what you pay taxes for. And I'm not sure if the left knows how rights work, considering how they're constantly creating and destroying them at will. But a right is immutable. In the American context, it's what they call inalienable. It means you can't give it away and someone can't take it away from you. You have it by virtue of your humanity. You are born with the right to self-defense because you have ownership of your own life. Nobody has a higher claim to you than you. So by extension, if somebody threatens you, you have a right to defend yourself. Right. Yes, that is a fundamental, inalienable human right that everybody has, regardless of where they're born, income status, all that kind of stuff. That's how rights work. Well, Kimmel and Colbert, who I would venture to guess are pro-universal healthcare, right? Healthcare is a right. And now they're saying our system should, or we're happy with our system denying you that right.
How the turntables, to quote Michael Scott. It's interesting. Have you ever heard like that phrase, pressure either busts pipes or makes diamonds?
Yeah.
Right. So basically to extrapolate it out is you see people's true colors when the heat is on. Like when, all around you is going crazy, who can keep their heads and who loses it. And this is losing your head. When you're starting to say, because of the choices that you make with your body, which you have every right to do, we are now going to punish you by not offering you the basic rights that we were just arguing for 5 months, 6 months, 1 year ago. We're going to refuse those to you because you didn't fall in line and do what we told you to do with your body. That's a problem.
Yeah. You're being punished and we're happy about it.
Right. So, and then I guess where I stand with that is like, it's a natural progression too, is like, okay, well, if you guys are so flippant about doing this, then why stop there? Why not hold those people accountable that smoke? You don't get any more treatments because smokers, that affects your entire system, not just your lungs. So when you get sick and you're a smoker, sorry, get the hell out of here. If you eat to excess, if you're overweight and don't change that, you don't get treatment either. You don't get insulin. You don't get this. If you've ever had a Coca-Cola, sorry, you're out of here. That's too much sugar at one time. You clearly don't care about your body.
If you don't regularly train and work on your cardio health, then you don't get heart surgery.
Right.
You get pushed to immediate back of the transplant list.
And then you say, that's being ridiculous. It's the same thing. It's literally the same thing. It's whatever you choose to do with your body is your choice.
And notice what we're doing here, right? So we're taking different behaviors and we're redrawing the line of what your rights allow you to have
through our perspective.
And again, if you think these examples that we're giving are absurd, that's the point. Because if the boundary line, the dividing line of what is a right and what is not a right is as amiable and can just be bent at will, like we just did with all of these other examples, saying, well, your right used to encompass this, but now it encompasses that. And you start, the weaker and squigglier you make that line, the more useless rights become. And then when rights are useless, what are you living under? That's totalitarianism, is where your rights, 100% of them are subject to the state. So that's a dangerous thing. That's a dangerous ideology to have about rights. So even though we would disagree with them on the universal healthcare thing, it should at least have the decency to be consistent and be like, no, we really think it is a true right. And therefore, as the bleeding heart liberals that want to take care of everybody, even if these people are going to be stupid and not get the vax, again, their words, if they're going to be stupid and not do it, we're still going to help them because, damn it, healthcare is a right. That's exactly what our system is set up for.
That's
to
what
even
America
protect
should
people
do.
from themselves.
That's what America should do.
Yeah. Which I guarantee you, that's the exact argument they would make in place of all of the groups that David. If somebody overeats and is overweight, what do they say? Body positivity, fat is healthy, all of that kind of stuff.
This is also coming from the same side that says that there's 87 genders. Yeah. But then says that science isn't real unless it agrees with their point. Yeah. So what are we doing here?
We're not exactly saying anything profound about the nature of the way that side of the political spectrum looks at rights and power and stuff like that.
Again, these are opinions from these people, from Kimmel and
Colbert.
I hate saying that name with disdain, but their opinions, and I'd also go as far as to say that maybe they don't even share those opinions. Maybe they were just supposed to say those opinions. And I would truly be hoping for that as opposed to the alternative.
I don't know. I would say that's almost worse.
Well,
in a true, because remember what happens or what happens at the end of 1984? Yeah. What is the thing that finally breaks him after they torture him for days and days and days, and they want him to say 2 + 2 is 5. And he's like, but I know that's not true. The last and final stage of totalitarianism, again, according to Orwell in 1984, is that the totalitarian is able to make you say things that they know are not true.
Right.
And by making you do that, then they have actual complete control over your mind.
Right.
Once you say, yes, 2 + 2 is 5, they know it's wrong, you know it's wrong, they know you know it's wrong, and they got you, they force you to say it anyway, they have complete and utter control over your mind. And if they don't actually believe those things, going back to Kimmel and Colbert, but they allow themselves through whatever to protect their career, again, within the cathedral. So if they don't toe the party line, they're out on their ear, right? If they want to protect that job, maybe they're comfortable with the money. Or, as David said, maybe it's a truly, genuinely held belief, which I think would be better than if they have allowed themselves to be 1984 into saying things that they know aren't true, but they still know that saying them and getting the masses to believe it in the very Goebbels propaganda-esque manner, they are at least increasing the chances of the march toward doom for that society, because it's happened again and again throughout culture. We were just talking about this the other day. The first thing that the Nazis said about the Jews is that they were unclean. The whole purpose of segregated fountains in the Jim Crow South was because African Americans were dirty, and that if they shared facilities, it would contaminate white people, right? So that's obviously, both of those are obviously in the racial context, context, but they were also political. But that's where it started. It started with saying, like, these group of people are unclean. They're beneath us. They're less. They're yada, yada, yada. And that's exactly what this narrative is coming from Kimmel and Colbert and the like of, if the vax die, then so be it. We're not going to treat them because they're less than. We need to keep them separated from us, right? Back to the segregation thing. They can't go to theaters. They can't go to ballparks. They're a menace to society, essentially. This is the exact same thing. It's just playing out in a different context with a different scapegoat group.
Shit.
So yeah, not pretty.
Well, we disagree on that one point, but apparently we agree on most of the other stuff. So that's...
And again, I mean, this is something that Kimmel and Colbert said this last week. This isn't something they said 20 years ago, which we're saying they should be canceled for. They said it essentially within the timeline of their careers yesterday, and we're still not saying cancel them. But they need to be under the microscope.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, where the Stern and the Arnie quotes are forgivable because maybe they're just speaking, rashly and not really being contemplative about their comments. This is a little more egregious because now this is inflicting harm upon other people.
Yeah.
This is almost reveling in the fact that these other people that won't fall in line are getting hurt and are dying.
I mean, if the 20th century taught us nothing, it taught us that large masses of people that succumb to this fear psychosis, those people are easily whipped into hysterics and they can do incredibly destructive things. I mean, this was the French Revolution. This was the Russian Revolution. This was the Nazis' takeover in Germany. It's played out again and again and again. If you condemn an entire society, an entire population to a fear psychosis, and you direct that energy in a certain direction, you can either get them to go along with very atrocious things or at a bare minimum look the other way while you do the atrocious things.
And the worst part about it is you'll think you're doing the right thing.
Yep. Your outrage becomes a virtue. So the more outraged you are, the more virtuous you are. And that has just a parabolic escalating crescendo all the way up to you are completely numb to the hatred that you have for another group of people based on nothing but the propaganda that told you.
And what happens when you hate another group of humans? You dehumanize them.
Mm-hmm.
They're less than. That's why they must be destroyed. And it's a good thing that thing is never played out in history once.
Yeah.
Other than the other times that you just listed.
Yeah. I mean, so with Arnold, with Howard Stern, with Kimmel and Colbert, I think those four examples about who they were and what they're now saying is a demonstration of a fall from here. Even if in nobody else's mind, like these are obviously David and I's opinions, but I bet you if you got Arnold to sit down quietly, make him watch
Turn off the cameras.
Yeah, turn off the cameras, watch Pumping Iron, watch that campaign trail event that I told you about in the early 2000s, and have him say, and just ask him questions. Arnold, does that seem different than where you are today? I bet even in his own heart of hearts, he would be not comfortable with that shift. We could be completely wrong about that, but I'm just saying, like, the fall from hero to villain can be known internally within the person who fell.
I don't know.
And we just hope that these four are able to look back at that, do that self-reflection, and say, you know what, maybe I am on the wrong side of history on this one. The left is a big fan of saying you're on the wrong side of history, and
or
maybe
just,
it applies to them too sometimes.
Just look inward, hopefully. But and again, don't cancel these people just because of their ideas in fact, you should listen to them more. You should listen to them to see how quickly or how maybe they'll shift or how quickly they'll accelerate in this kind of thought process.
And I mean, here's your action item, dear listener. I know I said I wanted to try to make a better effort of at least putting one action item at the end of every episode. Is you might think that you just have one voice and you're just somebody speaking into the ether on social media and you got 14 followers and you're like, who's going to see this? First of all, you never know which piece of information is going to blow up. There's a lot of vapid, baseless stuff out there which does. And if you say something profound, it might blow up, might reach a lot more eyes and ears than you thought possible. But just as we gave out the warning from history about what the masses are capable of doing if they're subjected to and buy into the fear psychosis, is within each individual person in the masses, it is within their control to contribute what they can to combat the fear narrative. So when you see posts about these guys saying these kind of things, jump in the comments. I'm not saying have a long, protracted argument with people, but I'm saying, like, put your 2 cents out there. You might change somebody's mind. And this cultural shift that we're trying to do with this podcast of, destroy bad memes and replace them with better ones is to go on that person by person level, change and win hearts and minds, because politics is downstream of culture. We seem like we're in a dark place right now, but if more people are speaking out for that anti-fear psychosis side of it, and they're changing one mind here, a couple minds there, that's how the masses still have the power to not go down the revolutionary France, revolutionary Russian example, and maybe go down the much less bloody, American revolutionary experience.
The Quiet Riot.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So with that being said, where can you find this episode? wmdpodcast.com/61, every podcast catcher, YouTube, and then, link up with us on the website. David, any closing thoughts?
Just be kind to one another. Don't cancel.
Rewind.
Yeah, rewind this. Oh, dude, they're not even going to get that reference. That doesn't exist anymore.
I don't know. We got old people.
Outdated some bitch. Well, anyway. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and stay safe out there, and hopefully we'll catch you on the next podcast.
I promise I'll get David to do his Arnold impression in more depth on episode 62.
Oh, that's a hell of a promise.